at 500 Davis Drive. The proposal is the town of Creston proposes submission of an application to the Agricultural Land Commission to exclude the 8.8 hectare subject property from the Agricultural Land Reserve to allow for expansion of municipal and industrial uses such as private, commercial, and industrial use to support attraction and retention of industry and facilities associated with wastewater treatment. This application is proposed to be submitted simultaneously with a separate application that requests inclusion of 17.6 hectares of productive land located near the town's airport. If successful, the proposal is intended to result in improved community economic resiliency. The town of Creston lacks lands for industrial expansion. Including these lands from the ALR gives Creston the opportunity to diversify Creston's economy and attract investment, creating jobs and infrastructure that make farming overall more feasible for families. The simultaneous inclusion of the 17.6 hectares of land would directly benefit farming by providing a larger land area with better suitability for agriculture. So I'll now explain the public hearing procedure. We are convening this public hearing to consider and receive submissions regarding the proposed submission of an application to exclude land from the Agricultural Land Reserve. Anyone who believes their interest may be affected by this exclusion of land will be heard. Council members may ask questions of you following your presentation. Our function tonight is to listen to the views of the public, not to debate the proposed exclusion of land from the Agricultural Land Reserve. After the public hearing has concluded, council may, without further notice, give whatever effect council believes proper to the representations. A public hearing binder has been available for public viewing and contains all information with respect to this application. Written submissions received during the course of these proceedings will be read aloud by staff and subsequently will be added to the public hearing binder. Your only remaining opportunity to comment on this proposal is during this public hearing. We are not permitted to receive further submissions once we have closed the public hearing. To maintain order and ensure that everyone has an opportunity to be heard, here are the rules of the procedure. Please bring your remarks by stating your name, or begin your remarks by stating your name and address. If you are speaking on behalf of some other person or organization, please identify the name of that person or organization. Please limit your remarks to 5 minutes and to the subject of this proposed exclusion of land. After everyone has spoken once, you will have an opportunity to speak subsequent times to provide additional information subject to the discretion of the chair. If you have any concerns about the rules of the public hearing, please address your comments to me as the chair. I will now ask staff to provide information about staff reports and written submissions with respect to the application.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the statutory notice of public hearing was published in the Creston Valley Advance on February 12th and 19th, 2026. Additionally, 6 notices were mailed and delivered to owners and occupants within 60 meters of the notification area. A staff report was provided to council for consideration on February 10th, 2026, and written and verbal submissions were received by staff up until 4 p.m. today, one of which has been included in your public hearing binder. So there were 2 written submissions provided. The first one was a draft from the regional district, and the second one, which I've just provided to you now, is their more formal response, which included also comments from utility services. So really just in summary, they're in support of the application, based on the fact that if the exclusion was to go ahead and the inclusion was to go ahead, then the property at the airport would have to be properly rezoned.
Okay. Are there any first-time speakers in response to this? You're done. This is your second chance. Any speakers? Is there anyone online, Creston, perhaps?
This is actually a delegation for later. There's no.
So I didn't see anybody else on there. So we have nobody online and no speakers from the public. So do we have any comments or questions from council? Does council require further staff reports for additional information on this public hearing?
No.
Okay. We will adjourn this public hearing then. You see him? It's called scheduling a meeting just for the sake of having a meeting.
First meeting I've ever seen.
So we will call our council meeting to order then. And again, I'd like to begin by saying this meeting is taking place on the unceded traditional territory of the Yakanuki within the Tanaka Nation. And again, we share our land with them and we are very fortunate to do so. I would like then to just have a motion to adopt the regular council agenda of today. Councilor Aries, second Councilor Holland, all in favor. Motion is carried. And then motion to adopt the minutes of the regular council meeting held on February 10th. Councilor Baldwin, second Councilor Eisler, all in favor. Motion is carried. We have our council reports there. It's not scheduled for this point. I don't know where else it is on the agenda, so let's just do it. Hey?
Sure.
Sure. Well, actually, it is right there. Sorry. I already checked it off.
We're jumping in.
You guys were trying to follow me, but you couldn't. Okay, so on 12th of February, I attended the Creston Valley Services Committee Sub-Regional Budget Discussion. And that's the first time that we've actually set aside a meeting specific to the budget, and it was good to have it just in one meeting. Then on the 12th, I also attended the RDCK Co-Management Workshop. On the 14th of February, participated in the Peace March to the U.S. border. And then just last Thursday, I also attended the Creston or the Regional District Board meeting, and I did submit a report today onto that. So I see Councilor Eisler, you're next.
February 10th, Creston Valley Community Housing Society meeting.
Councilor Holland.
February 17th, I was at the Creston Community Auditorium Society, and on the 18th, the Creston Valley Chamber of Commerce.
Anyone else? Looks like we were caught up.
That's fine.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, just February 18th, I attended the Joint Resource Recovery Committee meeting.
Right, so the motion is that the verbal and written reports of council be received. Councilor Baldwin, second Councilor Holland, all in favor. Motion carried. Okay, so now I just request a motion that we resolve ourselves into committee of the whole. Councilor Aries, seconded Councilor Dumas, all in favor. Motion is carried. We can get to our delegations in Creston Valley Wildlife Management Area and Kootenai Columbia Discovery Center Society, the funding report for 2025-26. You, Mark?
Yeah.
Thank you again for
I'm gonna ask a skill testing question about what that call is.
it's a branch. No. Yeah, it's funny. We were out with the staff last week in the wetland and we were driving along. Actually, Jacob, my niece's husband, was driving around and driving along and one of our staff said, stop, I think there's an owl. But then she said, well, maybe a branch, and we backed up and this is a long-eared owl.
That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
That's why I wanted it to be a.
Yeah. And they're very hard to see and quite rare. So
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're quite excited.
Yeah.
Seems fun.
Okay, I'll just, oh yeah, I'll try this, I guess it works. I don't know if you had a chance to read the report, but it's very similar to previous years. So I updated some of the values for the money provided by the town of Creston over quite a few years now. I don't know, I was thinking back, but I think I've been doing this for like 20 years.
You're gonna be a hologram.
Yeah. So we had requested in 24-25 to defer the funding so we could pool the funding to this year to conduct a larger project, which was reconstructing or like upgrading our boardwalk that's near the visitor center in West Preston. And we also had received funding from a private foundation. And I had done the same thing. I had deferred the funding, and actually I forgot in my budget to include that value there. So, but it doesn't change the numbers. So it's just moving money, moving numbers around. So it was really, we were grateful to be able to do that. And this fall, in October and November, the contractor proceeded to, just jump to the pictures, to add 2 sections of boardwalk in the wetland to have better connection for the public when they come down from the visitor parking lot, going across the little floating bridge, if you're familiar with the area, and going straight to the boardwalk. And then when we demolished the visitor center in 2020, we hadn't quite finished repairing the section that connects the bridge, the arch bridge to the boardwalk, and it was kind of convoluted and it didn't look as good. So we were happy to be able to do that. So I'll just go back to budget there. So in the budget there, we received, well, with our funding from the Creston Valley Wildlife Management Area, we had like $56,858 to spend. And it was $28,800 from the town of Creston. And then we had a private donation for $15,000. So that's missing on there, but I said to Kirsten, I just discovered this yesterday because it was in our budget, it was still sitting in the deferred revenue in the category. So I missed including it when I wrote the report. And so anyway, so then we provided $20,000 out of our budget to complete the project. And so that's one thing, that's basically what the town of Creston funding covered for this year, but I just also wanted to add a few more items that are kind of relevant to this area. Last spring, we had issues with our bird towers. The South Bird Tower, we discovered some damage in some of the legs. So we had to close it for a while, and I've been working with the engineers, an engineer from Nelson, to have design done to repair the thing. So it's all ready to go now. We're just waiting for the good weather to basically repair it. So hopefully it will be done by the end of April. I got the permits and everything from the regional district. And then also we participated into the wayfinding project. Last year I was approached by the lady that worked for the project, and she asked us if we wanted some additional signage. So we spent quite a bit of time organizing. It's quite complicated apparently to write signs that are on both sides and in 4 different directions. Yeah. So, but anyway, it turned out really well. The signs are beautiful, and we have 2 kiosks that we have to sort of design, panels and things, and so we'll be doing that in the next year. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Okay, so if you have any questions.
Any questions from council?
I had a question.
Yeah.
This is in our next report. We had to read a really long stormwater master plan. But in it, it was talking about the wetlands, and it said 1994 was added to the Convention of Wetlands, making it a wetland of international importance, which sounds like a pretty big deal.
Yeah, it's a designation that recognizes wetlands around the world, as important areas. The County Valley has that designation, and there's another one on the coast, basically the Delta Fraser is one.
Are those the only 3 in BC?
Yeah, yeah, there's 27 in Canada,
Wow.
and there's 3 in BC. And
Well done.
it's kind of a nice title. It doesn't come with any money. So, but we kind of every year, like they update us on what's going on. A lot of it is policies.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
But had we not set land aside back in 1968, we would have lost those wetlands. It would have been all farmland.
Yeah.
And this is a major staging area for migratory
Yes.
birds.
Yeah.
We would have
Yeah.
lost that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
It's great that was preserved and
Yes, it's goes
without saying that we're happy to contribute.
Yeah, thanks very much.
Yeah.
We appreciate it. So I'll pass it on to Carla.
Yeah.
The CUNY Columbia Discovery Center Society.
Hello, everybody. For the Discovery Center, we are the educational arm of what we do out in the wildlife management area. So we work closely with Mark and his team to ensure that we can offer on-site programming. So I did a little kind of summary. We've been doing it since 2018 through the Discovery Center. But obviously education at that site dates back to 1970, early 70s, when the old interpretation center was there. So since 2018, we've continued to deliver the school programs, the summer camps, the guided canoe tours, walking tours, hosting visitors from around the world at the Discovery Center that we have on site. I gave some stats just since 2018 of how many people we've actually cut through the center. And I love the stat of having over 13,000 school kids come through our programs. That's in our Creston area and beyond. We get about 5 different school districts that support our programs here. So they come from 2 to 3 hour drives away to participate, which is pretty amazing. And then, yeah, all the canoe tours and guided events and things that we host for the general public and visitors that come through. And then 2025 was a great season. We had good numbers. 46,000, that'd be nice, 4,600 visitors, and just over 2,000 school students. Our summer camp said 67 is a little bit lower than usual, but we had the grizzly bear right in the middle of summer camp. So that kind of was a little bit of a wrench in our outdoor experience at that point. So we had a little bit lower numbers than usual, but still went really well. And then again, with our guided canoe tours and other events. I gave a little bit of financial background because we are separate from the wildlife management area. We operate as our own federal charity. So we seek donations and funding from a variety of different sources to make sure that we can continue doing what we're doing. So it's government, it's corporations, it's private foundations. About 12% is fees for our programs, which is pretty low, which is how we kind of like it too, because it makes it affordable for the schools and for the parents and for the public to participate in the programs. Because our idea is to get as many people as we possibly can out there learning more about our wetlands and about our natural environment. 2026, I'm kind of, oh yeah, 2026. So we're on schedule to do our programming for 2026. Seasonal staff job postings are out. Schools are booking quite well right now, which is great. I did want to bring to the attention that we are embarking on a journey with the regional district in regards to the Discovery Center, because it was brought to their attention that it was deemed a temporary facility when it was first built in 2018, and we've continued to operate out of it. And we have been told that if we want to continue to operate out of it, we need to convert it to a more permanent facility. So we're kind of going through that process of what that entails, which I kind of doing a land survey was the first one, which has been ongoing right now, initiated by the wildlife management area too as well. And yeah, we're looking at what that entails, potentially getting some architect on site and making sure it conforms to code. We're not worried about that. It was built like a tank, like it's really quite well built and was built to code. It's just because it was deemed temporary at the beginning when it was built, it didn't go through all of the processes to be permitted for permanent building. So, and it is deemed more permanent as the years have gone by. It's serving its purpose well at the moment. We're able to do all of our programs and deliveries out of it. So it continued farther than we thought it would for what it does for us. So we'll see how this goes. We're optimistic, but there's obviously processes we have to follow through the RDCK to see what we're going to be needing to do. If we can make it permanent, if it's doable, feasible financially and other to make that happen. So we are embarking on that. I just want to make everybody aware of that too as well. Any questions or anything? Kind of in a nutshell for that one, but
No, that's good. So I know that site is smaller than what used to be there when the original site was quite a bit.
yes,
Was quite big.
6,000 to 600.
Yeah.
A little bit of a downsizing, yeah.
No theater.
No theater, no shop, no, yes. Those wonderful things we all remember from.
But I'm wondering, is there possibility in the future of expanding the size of the interpretation center?
Sure, and that's always part of the goal and mandate of the society is to figure out what future potential could be. Yeah, and we've had discussions with the Lower Kootenay Band too as well, because they have interest in potentially doing an educational cultural facility or endeavor in the area too as well. So continuing those discussions and keeping that as an open option for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'd be wonderful to have a big one again, but
It'd be
it looks like
nice.
you're doing well, what you do.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah.
We're slow and mighty at the moment. Like we're still doing and exceeding some of the past program numbers that we used to do. So that's the important part, I think, is getting people out into the wetland, which is why we appreciate the town of Creston's support, because a lot of the projects through the wildlife management area are infrastructure related, like the boardwalks, the signage, like all that stuff is so important. It helps us when we're out there educating students and people too as well. That stuff is really important.
Any questions from council? Hearing none, we appreciate the update. Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
thanks.
We'll move on to the WSP regarding Creston Stormwater Management Master Plan. And Colin, I'll just hand it to you. Get this one started.
Well, thank you, Your Worship and Council. Today I have a presentation that's going to be provided by Josh Maxwell. Josh is a professional engineer and water resources lead for WSP Canada. Josh and his team over the last year have been working on Creston Stormwater Management Master Plan. So it's a pretty big document for us. It provides a lot of guidance going forward. It's tough to go through that 230 odd pages. So we have Josh here today. He's going to give you a PowerPoint presentation, go through it very high level, talk a little bit about what went into it, what some of the findings are, and some of the more exciting things about it. So I'll pass this over to Josh. At the end, there will be a chance to ask any questions to him that you might have. And if there's anything that ever comes up, I'm always available to answer questions as well. So if that don't get to anything today, I'm always around. So with that, I will hand everything over to Josh and he can start with his presentation.
I appreciate that, because I've been assured by council they've read this in depth and have hundreds of questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Colin, and thank you, Your Worship and Council. Is my audio coming through okay?
Good, thanks.
Wonderful. Okay, we're going to spend a bit of time talking about stormwater. Hope you're all excited and awake. It should be a very interesting presentation, actually. So as Colin said, we're here to talk about the Town of Creston Stormwater Management Master Plan that we've been working on for a little over a year now. We've gathered input principally with working with Colin. However, he's done a great job of connecting us with a number of important stakeholders in the area, including your operational staff, your administrative staff, and also the local band, the Yakanuki, who we have also had a chance to communicate with. So just basic rundown on the scope of our work here. The overall goal of our stormwater of the SMMP is to look at all the ways in which you manage stormwater. The biggest part of that's flooding, but we also talk about nuisance water, which is basically water that's not necessarily flooding but causing nuisance, causing trouble, and as well as water quality and what the town of Creston can do to responsibly manage its impacts on the downstream environment. To do this, we did a fairly comprehensive background review. We also conducted an environmental and heritage review, and we built a stormwater model. We analyzed your stormwater system. We developed some improvement strategies, and then we also looked at your policies and regulations. And finally, this all gets wrapped up into a 20-year capital plan, which spells this out in terms of projects that are prioritized across that time scale. From a data gathering perspective, we looked at the town of Creston did have a previous stormwater master plan from the 90s, so it was fairly outdated, but it did have one. We also looked at some of your planning documents, obviously your existing zoning, and as well as your future development plans factored in to how our front end review. Spatial data was a critical part of our model building. So we have probably most significantly, we have a digital elevation model. So we have a topographic map essentially of your town and the entire surrounding area. We also know where all your buildings, your roads, and all your underground infrastructure is as well. So that's pipes, that's catch basins, that's culverts. All that information is in a GIS database that the column was able to share with us. We also finally have ortho imagery, satellite photos of the town. We have drawings from past projects and in no insignificant level, the Creston staff experience. So you're mostly talking about your operational staff. So we took time to sit down with your operational staff and hear from them what their experiences were working with your system. Just to give you a bit of a rundown on urban stormwater systems and how they function. We normally use these terms called the minor and the major system in the world of stormwater. So you've got the storm pipes and the catch basins, which you're obviously familiar with. And those are underneath the roadway. And, in a perfect world, we would make those gigantic and you could just, all the water would run into them. And you would never have to worry about water running down the roadway. But that's not financially feasible. And what has been developed over the decades has been this concept of, well, we have a pipe system that takes away all the kind of the low level rain events up to what in the modern framework up to about a 5-year storm, and then anything above that, the roadway itself forms part of the stormwater system. And this is, I know, something that not everyone's aware of, that the curb and gutter and the parking lanes effectively at a shallow basis forms the backbone of how we manage major storm events. So that's something. This will become fairly important later on when we start talking about how the system functions. From a model building perspective, I'm not going to tell you much about computer modeling. You don't need to know a whole lot, but just to give you a sense of how this, what we were doing, essentially what we are, how we are approaching modeling an urban stormwater system is we divide up into thousands of small subsections your system. So we have subcatchments, which are basically someone's property or a slice of a hill, and then we model both those pipes and that gutter that we talk about. So we actually do represent both the pipe system and the major system where that was. So we can tell you, we can develop a fairly decent estimate of how your system will function under major events based upon that. You can see this is essentially what the model ends up looking like in the end, and it's we have much more detailed figures in the actual report if you want to see more about that. Environmental and archaeology kind of goes hand in hand with stormwater in many cases. So as part of this project, we also included an environmental scientist and an archaeologist, and they were working on the front end of it to give us some mapping to help us understand where the areas of concern were their sensitivities within the town and beyond its borders. I'm not going to dwell a lot on the environmental side, but suffice to say, some of the species of concern in the Creston area, great blue heron, the monarch, and the red-tailed chipmunk were items of concern. And so we have habitat was provided to us in mapping. And the idea was that as we were looking at upgrade projects, this would give us sort of an early warning system so that we would be able to check and make sure that we weren't, going to put a storm pipe through where the great blue heron habitat or something to that extent. Similarly, we looked at archaeological sites. So whenever we are designing and planning piping, it's not uncommon that this interacts. When we're digging up the ground, we can interact with archaeology. Within the town boundaries itself, there were really three sites of interest. Two were registered historical sites. One was the Creston grain elevators, and the other one is the Creston Municipal Office itself. The third is a known site where they found they're referred to as surface lithics. And so these are commonly stone tools, or fishing weights is another common one. And this was a topic that we discussed with the Yakanuki, how to approach working around these sites, how to approach the risk of encountering artifacts when we are excavating the ground for projects. Out of that is this concept of chance find procedures. So the Yakanuki are part of the West Kootenay Band, which is part of the Kunaksa Nation. And they have published a chance find procedures document, which basically consists of the recommendation to, if we encounter archaeological artifacts, they recommend we stop work, we contact an archaeologist, and have the archaeologist provide guidance. And so we want to. The recommendation is to adopt. The town of Creston should look at adopting some procedure like this, just because it's the Creston Valley is it's had people living and sustaining themselves in it for tens of thousands of years, and so there's lots of examples of these artifacts around the valley that are likely to be encountered. Getting back to the stormwater stuff here. So the model build, we talked a bit about that. This is the pipe sizes that we were able to glean from your GIS. Generally, one of the major things we encountered in this study was that honestly, the town of Creston does have some fairly small piping under its streets. Maybe one of the most significant examples is probably the entire downtown area, Cook Street, Canyon Street. A lot of it drains out through a single 300 millimeter pipe. That's a 1 foot diameter pipe under the tracks. We'll get into it in the modeling, but that pipe, it's just completely overwhelmed. Does not have capacity for much. We saw this in a lot of other areas too. This isn't uncommon to municipalities. Your community's grown over the years, and as you grow, it's easy for additional flows to get kind of tacked on to existing piping. And we saw that when we started modeling. We saw that there was considerable stretches of the system, of the underground pipe system, that really was not able to convey a 5-year storm event, which is the typical number we would look for. Another possibility here is that in older communities, kind of going back to maybe the pre-80s era, some piping was designed for 2-year events instead of 5-year events. And so that's another possibility of for how that could have come about. So in our modeling, you can see here we have there's a lot of red here. There's a lot of pipes that are overwhelmed. What is fairly interesting is if we looked at your overland flow system, we find it's actually fairly capable of still conveying those flows. I think you can take credit to that due to the fact that you are in a mountainous environment. So yes, you have small pipes, but you also have some fairly steep streets. And so what's happening, it appears to us, is that the water just kind of shoots down the street and doesn't seem to be causing a large issue with flooding. So on that basis, when we'll get more into recommendations later, but one of my big recommendations here would be that, obviously, perfect world, tell you to fix all these pipes, but I think I bankrupt you doing that. So I don't think that's appropriate. So what we're going to say though is as these pipes age out and as opportunities present themselves, we're suggesting and we're providing recommended improved pipe sizes to convey those flows. So it's not an immediate expense, but down the line, and this could be 20 years from now, these pipes we should look at swapping them as they, like I said, as they reach the end of their useful lifespan. Talking about upgrades to your system. So this is we call these opportunistic minor system upgrades. So we are providing essentially a list of upsized pipes. It's in our report and provided also as like a GIS data set to Colin. And so as these pipes, like I said, as they age out. One of the interesting side effects of this overwhelmed minor system is some of the what we can have happen is we can have pipes can get overwhelmed or pressurized effectively by the events, and it can, rather than water going down into the sewer, it can try and come back up again downhill. This is a bit of a safety concern. You can see the big issue is that you can see manhole lids get dislodged during major events, and then you have a safety concern here. Someone could drive through an intersection, drive over an open manhole, and have their wheel fall in, or worse, someone could try and walk through and fall in the opening. We observed this in your model, and we also heard some anecdotal stories from your operational crew of having to deal with this issue. I've heard some stories of people parking their trucks on top of manholes during storm events, trying to keep a lid on things. If you've done. So to manage this risk in high risk locations, we're suggesting to replace the normal solid manhole rims with a graded top rim. So with essentially the same rim you would use in a catch basin, so that water at least has a way of getting out, a bit of a pressure relief, so that these can flow. There isn't really a lot of downsides to doing this. There is a slight chance of some sewer odor in the open, because you now have an opening in the manhole. But this is a storm sewer system, so it really shouldn't be that significant. This is a fairly low cost item. It's a fairly simple improvement. You just need to order new lids from a foundry, and your town staff can go around installing them. Like I said, I don't recommend this everywhere. It's just really in some selected locations where it was an area of concern. Talking about the major system, we identified a number of places around town where there was just most of these are fairly minor, but there were a few spots where the major system just didn't quite have proper grading, or one of the common issues we encountered was that water was maybe not necessarily being contained safely within the right-of-way itself. So you are, as I said, a mountainous community, and folks on the downhill side of the street, it's not uncommon for the driveway just to go slope down towards the garage. And you can imagine how the water that we want to run down the street is if it hits that bit of driveway that slopes down to the property, it could not basically leave the roadway and open that private area. I don't have every single one of these locations shown to you, but I thought I'd give an example here just to give you a sense. Each one of these is talked about in the report, but as an example here, we're over on 20th Ave South and Elm Street. We have a low spot where water comes down. This is Dodds Creek over in the kind of in the background. So water is coming down 20th Ave, and there's a bit of a sidewalk here you can see, but the sidewalk's basically dead flush with the roadway. It's not built up at all. And so what's basically going to happen in this current setting is that the water is just going to run across the roadway and end up running into this parking area. And we want to keep the water within the public realm wherever possible. So the recommendation is to establish a proper curb line here, and raise the sidewalk up, and so that the water can hit the curb and run down to Dodds Creek rather than going over onto this parking area and causing nuisance. The other big major system upgrade, and probably one of the more significant cost items that our master plan is proposing, is culverts along Dodds, King, and Glacier. So we have a number of culverts that are a little bit undersized, and so we are providing, we're recommending upsizing for them as funds and growth require. This is partially an existing and partially a new growth item. So some of these areas are triggered more by new growth than as existing. Speaking to your downtown, so I mentioned Cook Street. This is just the area. This is just south of Canyon. So there's a bit of a parking lot over here, and the water. Sorry, I'm waving at the screen. I should use my mouse. The water comes down, and more or less seems to. There's only a little 300 mil pipe going across the tracks here, and so it looks like this is all just going to kind of flood out a bit, and then eventually overtop the train tracks. This is probably one of the we spent a fair bit of time talking about this with Colin and trying to find alternatives for how to improve it. We are suggesting a bioswale over along 16th Ave. A bioswale is really just a ditch, but a ditch with enhanced an opportunity for enhanced soil media, enhanced vegetation. It's a form of green infrastructure. And the basic idea is there's a fair amount of water coming into the Canyon and Cook Street system from uphill. And we want to try and intercept some of that water and take it directly to Dodds so that we can take some of the load off of your local urban system. In addition to that, over on Canyon Street, I was there in the summer. By the way, I was actually there physically with Colin, looking at all of this. And Canyon Street's a lovely commercial area. I know in the transportation world as well, we're hearing a lot more about these complete streets and green streets. And the recommendation we're suggesting is to, within Canyon Street, as you look at redeveloping it, I understand there are some plans afoot with regards to that. Look at adopting some Green Street principles. Some examples of that would be tree box filters, pervious pavements, infiltration trenches, those sorts of features. And ideally, this is something that would kind of integrate with improvements to the walking experience on Canyon Street to make it, these are opportunities to include native species, larger trees, more trees. And these are all things that, benefit the environment, benefit the public, and also benefit the stormwater catchment as well. Just to give you a sense, and I admit these are AI images, and because we did not have funding for a landscape architect to make us nice sketches, but bear with me for the AI. This is just to show the basic ideas. So this is over along 16th Ave down to Dodds Creek. So the bioswale, we're kind of picturing something like this. This may be a bit wider than it may be in reality, but the intention is to try and keep this within the right of way, so that because we don't want to interact with the school site that's right beside. Despite that, it would be an amenity, I think, to the school site. And then over on Canyon Street, once again, like I said, it's AI. Don't get just trying to give you some visuals to stimulate conversation perhaps, but in opportunities for the big thing with Green Street principles, we're looking for more trees. We're looking for some planting beds if possible. But we also want to try and run stormwater into those planting beds so the plants have an opportunity for to slow that water down, to filter it, improve the quality is the goal. Final component of the upgrades is new development, so supporting new growth. So you have a development cost charge system, a DCC, and there are several long-term improvements that are currently filed under that or tracked under that system, and that development is basically paying into. There are several new pipes. So we got on Devon Street, Highway 3 to Highway 21, got a new pipe system over there planned to support some of the development. Likewise, over on 8th Ave Northwest, same thing, new piping system. And finally, over on Glacier Drive, there's another piping system proposed. In addition to that, the other big improvement that is in the DCC is a rechannelization of Glacier King Creek. So there's a portion of Glacier King Creek there's a new collector road planned through here. Sounds like my understanding is that there's no room within the right of way for the roadway if we don't move the creek. So in support of that, the DCC does have plans for basically moving Glacier Creek over, and then channelizing and naturalizing it so that it operates safely within a smaller footprint that's more aligned with the right of way. Looking at improvements to that, we did also model improve scenario, basically with those improvements applied. We did not model the upsized piping because we thought that was unrealistic to model the upsized piping in the app because we saw that as a longer term timeline. But the main item we were looking for with our improved future minor system was just to prove that the new growth wouldn't adversely impact your system. So that's really the goal of the future growth, is to basically not impact existing, to compensate for its effects effectively. Likewise, the future major system, we also looked at it. It remains pretty good. We don't see major issues with your major system, as I said, aside from those, kind of small issues. Kind of recapping here. The minor pipe system is over capacity. It may have been built at a prior age to a 2-year level of service, or we've just simply expanded into it over the years. We recommend that as that piped infrastructure ages out and requires replacement, it be replaced with a larger, more appropriately sized pipe. Also, when roadways are reconstructed, we also suggest installing straight or rolled-faced curb and gutters to assist with maintaining the major system. So that's kind of coming out of some of those specific locations where we noticed that there wasn't necessarily a proper curb in several places around the community. And so when that curb plays a stormwater management function in addition to a transportation function. Getting into prioritization and the capital plan. So what always happens in these master plans is I come up with a wish list of improvements. It's always too much money. And so we always have to sit down and talk with our client and figure out, okay, well, what's our priorities, and how do we, what needs to get hit first? Where can we spend our money first? So as I said, culvert upsizing really occupies the bulk of a lot of these costs. Then followed that was the development cost charge improvements. The and next up, downtown system improvements, and then those overland system improvements, and the general. They were called general in the report, but those are essentially just the manhole lid replacements that we are suggesting. Talking to Colin, we looked at a phased implementation strategy. So the suggestion is, in the short term, we focus on the low-hanging fruit, the easy to implement stuff. So we're looking at fixing those surface drainage issues, those locations with like location 4 I showed you over there. Replacing those manhole lids with graded top lids so that we reduce the risk of those pressurized manholes. As well as initiating a basic water quality monitoring program. So currently the town of Creston has really nothing as far as information on what sort of water quality is going to the downstream. This is optional in a regulatory sense. No one is forcing you to do any sort of water quality monitoring at a provincial level or at a federal level. So this isn't something you have to do. However, it's a fairly low risk item, low cost item. It's a several grab sample. Someone can go out during a storm, grab some samples from your outfalls, and send those to a laboratory and get some basic water testing done on them. And that can just a little bit of information on what sort of runoff the town is producing. In the medium term, the Cook Street upgrades and the Canyon Street upgrades, we saw those as likely to, probably in the 5 to 10 year range. Those are likely to be tandem with transportation upgrades as well. So those aren't upgrades you're going to be undertaking just in a vacuum. You would be looking to do that probably in tandem. And then the longer term is the DCC upgrades and the higher risk culverts and crossings that would need to be improved. We mentioned earlier. We recognize that there's some variability in how and when these get upgraded. So we did work with Colin a bit on triggers for implementation. So we recommended just these are this is a suggested timeline, but there's ways that this could be modified. So we talked about system driven triggers, we talked about development driven triggers. So if a developer decides that they're going to move on in a certain area of Creston and pays into the DCC, well, that should hopefully free up some money to make the necessary improvements. Similarly, infrastructure, we saw infrastructure coordination as a big item too. A lot of these items we recognize aren't going to happen in a vacuum. We don't want you to be digging up a road to replace a pipe, until you actually have to dig up the road too, is the idea. And then the other idea is funding and grant triggers. And I guess I didn't talk about this, but those green infrastructure upgrades I talked about, there are a number of grants floating around, provincial and federal, for implementing green infrastructure. And so that is the idea is we wanted to put this in a report that we recommend the town does this work, and then Colin can hopefully use that as ammunition for applying for grants. So he can point to my stormwater master plan and go, look, they said I should do this. This is a needed improvement. And so that may also form a funding source for some of these the green infrastructure improvements I have discussed. Just talking less about capital and more about operations management and programming. We flagged a number of locations that should perhaps require more routine inspection. One of the big ones are culvert inlets on Dodds Creek. Colin's talked to, there's been a few issues with clogging on some of those Dodds Creek culverts. So just additional effort required to monitor them, make sure they aren't plugged. There's also plans in the works for some essentially trash racks, or a product called Grizzlies that goes on the front end to basically they're big caged filters to filter's the wrong word, but it's a grating to stop them from becoming clogged quite so easily. Natural channel monitoring. So keeping an eye on, once again, on a let's say annual basis, having a look at some of the natural channels to the town, making sure they're not eroding. You could explore community supported monitoring. So resident operations, resident observation can be incorporated into the monitoring process. So you may have some keen residents that would be interested in paying attention or maybe walking certain stretches of creek on a certain basis, certain frequency. Manhole lid management, we talked about that already, but just monitoring those manholes and then getting them replaced. Record keeping and asset tracking is another item. So just sounds like they're talking to your operational staff. They've done a lot of good work over the years, maintaining your system. Having a record of that maintenance effort is helpful. And I understand there already is that's already in play, but it's good to manage and manage your assets. Finally, there is like I said, talked about a basic water quality monitoring program. So, starting with just some grab samples of smelt falls. You also could look at citizen science efforts to help if that's, you have a certain person is interested in collecting the samples and, town could pay for them to be sent to a lab. That could, you could do a lot with a little from a funding perspective. And that brings us to the end of the recommendations. So thank you, and I will be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Councilor Isel.
I was wondering, like, with the downtown and beyond, like tree box filters and pervious pavement and infiltration trenches, I was wondering what effect, like, if the downtown had all green roofs, installations on them, and if there's actually any like grants out there for businesses or building owners for that sort of thing, whether it's like tax breaks or grants.
I'm to be honest with you, I'm not 100% sure. I don't actually personally, I don't operate in the building sciences realm that much. I do know that green roofs, unfortunately, don't help with infiltration. They do help with evaporation, and they do help with the urban heat island effect, and they help with the green cities. But from a strictly stormwater perspective, they aren't as effective as the more in-ground features, because those can actually put the water down into the ground. So they aren't normally something that we've my understanding of green roofs is it's an interesting and exciting technology. It is not one that has taken off in large form. Certainly I suspect there are some grants out there for it, and there's benefits to that. Would it be it's difficult to speak. It would have some benefit for the storm system. It's certainly not something we quantified in our study, though.
Yep, thanks.
Yeah.
Councilor Hawken.
I just have two questions, and maybe this is more to Colin, but I'm just curious, when you identify a short-term, medium-term, and long-term upgrade, is that identifying like risk to us so that we are addressing items in like the short term because there's a higher risk associated with not addressing that? Or is that short term like our quick wins? These are easy things that we can do quickly. And just trying to, like, in the report, you talk about, basically what we're gonna need to budget year by year to hit those short-term, medium, and long-term capital upgrades. So just, I guess just understanding what is the risk, and should we be looking at starting year zero now, or do we have some time before we are hitting year 0 to year 5.
I can start with that a little bit. As for the priority, 0 to 5 typically does have a slightly higher risk, you know. Also talks a little bit about funding, you know, the graded manhole cover is at $65,000 is a lower cost. There's more benefit to spending that money early. You know, there is a high risk with those manholes coming off with pedestrian and traffic. So, you know, it is risk-based, it's also dollar driven. Josh talked a little bit about keeping water within the public realm. And so, you know, though any of those instances that show water leaving our right of way going across private property, that is a higher priority because we want to try to mitigate that liability. A lot of those areas where the water leaves our right of way and goes across private property, we've got easements across that property. Right, so we are protected so that we can sort of maybe build on what's there, but it does need some work. So yeah, short answer, the higher risk ones are typically a higher priority. You know, some of the bigger cost ones are falling back a number of years because they may be development driven, like the development cost ones. There might not be a need for that infrastructure for 10 or 15 years. Gives us an opportunity to raise that money through DCCs prior to being implemented. That doesn't mean the developer can't come in tomorrow and say, I want to do this now. And you know, so, but it's a guideline for us. You know, it's not something that we're going to want to adopt this thing and throw it on a shelf and forget about it for 10 or 15 years. We need to take a look at this thing in our annual budgets, in our 5-year capital budgets, and review it on a regular basis to make sure that those priorities, those medium, those short-term and those long-term projects are still where they are. So Josh, do you have anything to add to that?
You've kind of hit it. Yeah, I think you kind of hit it there, Colin. I think the manhole lids is probably one of the higher risk or higher liability items, as well as water leaving the public right of way and entering private property. Anytime you have that happen, that's a liability risk, right? And so both of those were identified as higher priority. Obviously in the perfect world, like I said at the start, it'd be nice to replace everything now, but that's never practical. But certainly those two items, that was the reason behind their prioritization as we did. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you.
Councilor Ball.
Thanks. I've got a couple of questions. One was brought up was by the tracking process. I think a step that we should take is being proactive about talking to actual property owners or occupants. There's a long-standing issue here where the water leaves, comes tearing down the street, crosses the street, and goes through the accessibility ramp onto the sidewalk, and then flies across the sidewalk and goes into the building. I'm looking at 14th Avenue where it hits Canyon. It flows across Canyon, across the crosswalk, through a very wide opening on the sidewalk. So there's no curb to slow anything down. And I first saw this with the business owners. I went in and I said, what are all the towels for? And they said, well, if you look at it, I looked outside, it was raining. We haven't had any big rains, so we really can't replicate it lately. The water had been pouring down 14th, right across the crosswalk, across the sidewalk without, because it was basically being channeled there, and right under their front door, into the basement, into all of the heating stuff and everything like that. And it was serious. And they said there'd been several years of that. And I said, so what did the town tell you? And they said, well, the town didn't really talk to us about it. So they just had kept, as time went by, that when there was a major rain event, they knew they had to get their stack of towels out to keep. But as soon as you open the door, the water flowed right back in again. So, I mean, literally they're at flush with ground level there. So something like that. Is that those really wide openings? Is there a way of dealing with that with storm drains? Because there's none around it. I mentioned this to Colin, but just.
Yeah, well, there's a challenge because you want that curb that has a consistent face to it to convey water on the road, but you also will want to accommodate road users. So you need to slope those. So sometimes it is a challenge. The area you're describing is right in that downtown core that was flagged in the model as a concern. So,
So it's not just the pipes, though. I'm just saying it's.
it's the major network, it's the minor network. And that area is at it's a medium priority. We need to maybe look at funding programs to come up with some solutions in there.
Right. But it didn't seem to be a problem of the drains themselves had capacity, right? And that was where they were, but they were a long way from that.
Just not going to.
Well, it's frequency too.
Yeah, you have to have a big rain to make it.
Do you have catch basins every 10 feet? Or are they every 100 feet? We look at how is the community built? And if it was built to a 1 and 2 year event or a 1 and 5 year event at that point, what was the manhole spacing and things like that? And what's changed with the landscaping or the streetscaping since those catch basins were put in? They did some downtown improvements with bump outs and things like that 15 years ago. They increased the frequency of catch basins to pick up that water that was sort of trapped. Can there be improvements done on that? The situation you explained is kind of tricky because coming down a hill, right? It's not continuous in the right of way. So, and that
Just go straight.
That panorama sort of lines up right with the curb and gutter on the other side of the road too. So hindsight being 2020, if we would move the panorama 10 feet either direction, we might have made that problem. So I definitely hear you. We have some challenges.
Right, and then the final part to that is that everything here seems to have been built right down at ground level. And that to me is kind of unusual. In other words, you're literally, there's the sidewalk and it's smooth with the floor going in. If in the future, is there something we could do to ensure that the internal floors are actually above grade? Like it seems obvious.
With new construction, we do, when new subdivisions, we put them in, we really look at what's happens from property line to property line, right? We try to maintain positive drainage from the property line to the roadway itself. Extending that to the building envelope, the building code does identify how you will do drainage around your house to sort of make sure you've got positive drainage that's, 5% or greater, for 5 feet coming away from your building foundation.
Yeah.
So, our new standards and the new building codes attempt to address that. Good design practices carry that further. Older situations like the downtown, like we know those buildings were moved back a little bit when the road was widened, the road was built up, what was there. That's kind of the creep over time where something that might have worked 50 years ago with ditches through there, eliminate the ditch, create a more urban environment, and it creates issues. Reclaiming that downtown core. And I think there is an opportunity if and when that ever proceeds to improve drainage through there, and also create an environment that is, green.
Thanks. Thanks.
Councillor Arias.
Yeah, I really enjoyed reading this, or more than I thought I would. I enjoy water quality, climate resiliency, all those things. I just wanted to ask kind of off of Councillor Houghton's question, why would we wait for 10 plus years to do the DCC upgrades? What would be our reasoning?
Well,
sorry.
If I can just proceed with the DCC, and the DCCs mirror what you saw last year.
Yeah.
Right, so there is some carry forward that we have to do to get those in place.
Yeah.
It was key that the storm drainage master plan evaluate those projects. So that was a very important step. But with the Glacier Drive, that road will be built in phases. And will really be triggered by development. We could go in and build that all today. But we'd be upfronting the cost. We might be successful with grants or things like that to do that, to reduce the DCC burden going forward. But with tax dollars and everything spread the way they are, the DCCs are a mechanism for us to gradually accumulate the money at the lowest impact to the community and hopefully have sufficient money when that project is warranted. Not saying that there are some culverts on Glacier Drive right now at Paint Street, for example, that we might want to get in as a higher priority because it's an existing culvert that's undersized and we might want to do it now before the realignment occurs. So there are definitely things that we might jump on, and those might show up in your future budgets. But for the most part, when we prioritize those road realignments, we're looking at 5, 10, 15 years before there's even development around them to warrant that.
Right.
We don't want to build this infrastructure 10 years before the first house goes in. We want to have it before the houses go in, but we don't want to have it in decades before. So that's probably one of the bigger reasons why those DCC are long-term, because a lot of those pipes and projects within the DCC that you guys have seen are for future development. The community can support the shorter term development. It's looking forward to develop those long tracts of land in the Alice Siding area. Those are years before developers come in. They're years before the infrastructure's.
Anyone else?
I just had one quick one. Is there a cost and life expectancy difference of the permeable cement versus the regular asphalt that we use? I'm assuming yes, because otherwise we use it everywhere.
I'm gonna say yes, and I'll toss it to Josh to maybe expand on that.
Yes, permeable pavement is definitely more costly. It is definitely something that is developing. I'd say it's developing slower than just tree trenches and tree planters, tree boxes. It is popular in a pedestrian setting, though. It's not something for. There's lots of examples of permeable pavement in front of, like, as in the walkways. It's less popular. I'd say where it's really hasn't really taken off is in the drive lanes, just due to sanding. The sanding and sediments. It's very one of the big issues is it's vulnerable to clogging. So it's more expensive, and it is vulnerable. Its O&M is actually is also is higher as well. So it may form part of the strategy. Is all of Canyon Street going to become permeable pavement? Probably not. It's commonly kind of you would typically see that tied in with more of an architectural look too. Maybe you'd look at sidewalks, for instance, being done with it or something, just to kind of give that visual difference.
I have a question as well. We've talked a lot about capacity, but not a lot about condition. And the thing that I worry about most is, and a lot of places that's not a big deal, but where Dodge Creek goes underground, and I'm just curious about the condition of the culverts there, and the implications of a plug there are huge because of the flooding that would happen, and also the excavation that would have to take place to replace that. So I guess, what are the conditions, and do we have any sort of plan, or do we just, I know we probably monitor it all the time, but at times there's a lot of water that goes under there.
There's a lot of water, under Millennium Park is interesting. That's a long pipe. Fortunately, it's a plastic pipe as opposed to a corrugated steel pipe, which will rust out. So, it's got life. As for the condition, that's something we have to monitor on time. Millennium Park, it's an interesting situation. You've got a high risk culvert, yet you put infrastructure over top of it. It's maybe not something that we want to plan to do in the future to minimize the risk and give us accessibility to be able to dig up those deep culverts. So plastic pipe definitely has a longer life expectancy than corrugated steel. There are some crossings like Fifth Avenue where we have a CSP that, you're starting to get perforations forming in that pipe. So we want to take a look at the condition of those pipes. There's a capacity, but you're right. Condition will play into it. You know, what Josh is recommending is a lot of the pipe replacements are based on end of life replacement. While those culverts are getting close to the end of life, so they're gonna show up a little bit closer than some of the other plastic pipes that we have around town in the minor system.
Yeah, it scares me because of the existing and future infrastructure on top of it.
You know, we're probably sitting in a good situation for condition of pipes because our storm system is relatively newer. You know, the bulk of it's gone in the eighties, seventies, eighties and nineties, when plastic pipe was starting to creep in. So the pipes that we do have in the ground, albeit maybe undersized, have a good life expectancy. You know, as opposed to our sanitary and water systems, which are older and have the more have pipe materials that have a lower life expectancy than plastic. So, you know, our storm, I'd say for the most part, outside of the culverts, which are sometimes corrugated steel, you know, the minor system are typically plastic and have good life remaining, and it's just been taking the opportunity, if we're digging up the road to replace the water or to replace the road surface, and we're 2 feet away from the undersized plastic pipe, take that opportunity to replace it at that time. But if the road doesn't need to be upgraded, let's live with the pipe. We have to watch, we have to utilize staff knowledge, things like this. We have to be aware of the problems are. Josh talks about inspection reports and you know, work orders and tracking this. You know, it's critical that we have that so that we don't forget that this was done, you know, 5 years ago, that we have a record of it occurring on an annual basis. And we're starting to develop that within the Public Works Department. We just have to expand on that as we go. Eliminate the surprises as much as we can.
Anybody else? Okay, we will get back to business and a couple of recommendations here, committee of the whole. First is that the delegation from Creston Valley Wildlife Management Area in Kootenai, Columbia's Discovery Center regarding funding report for this year. Yeah, we'll take that what we received, we're good with that. All right, and secondly, the delegation from WSP regarding Creston Stormwater Management Master Plan be received, and further that council direct staff to bring forward the Creston Stormwater Management Master Plan for council consideration at the regular council meeting of March 3rd, 2026. So it's next meeting. We'll do that. All right, so we'll proceed then to the council direction request from the CAO regarding the proposal for land purchase from the BC Recreation and Resources Limited.
Your worship, so I put together just a quick summary of that, an email that gets addressed to all of council. Council can't make decisions via email, so this is how it ends up on your agenda. So, so I outlined just in the staff report at a very high level. First off, I was leaving the week previous, so I wanted to give them a follow up on some of the process of it's going to end up on council, and then some of the correcting information that was in their letter. And so then the intent of this was to be able to provide some key information about your role, any implications to council if you were to consider it, from a BC housing perspective, so on and so forth. So I guess that we would just be looking for council's direction then on how to respond back to the proposal.
Did you email a letter back? Yes.
Yeah, just that it was going to be on the agenda for today.
Any questions or discussion? So we have recommendations before us, and this is a committee of the whole, so I won't ask anybody to make a motion that we purchase the property. So the recommendation is that the report titled Proposal for Land Purchase from BC Recreation and Resources Limited dated February 24th, 2026 from the CEO be received for information, and that council considered the proposal to purchase the Creston Ramada property at a cost of $22 million from the unsolicited proposal by BC Recreation and Resources Limited dated February 13th, 2026, and further that council direct staff to respond to the proposal from BC Recreation and Resources Limited declining the offer to purchase. We'll go with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think we're gonna buy it.
And we gave them some option. BC Housing. right?
So are we sending a subsequent letter?
Yeah, the subsequent letter will be just to basically decline the offer.
Okay, and I mean, I've read your letter from the 14th. Are we? I mean, I guess this letter said, was more correcting facts that they had
Mhm.
misstated in their letter. But when we reply back, are we going to, direct them a little bit more to where they may want to be working to move forward their ideas?
At the end of my letter, it does give them some suggestions if they wanted to pursue that. I suggested that, well, this will go to council for their consideration, that alternatively, there's probably some other avenues if they were serious about actually that proposal.
Yeah, it was good. It's good.
Okay.
I think the offer kind of took us by surprise because it's not really compatible with the plans that we've made for our community. So we'll move on to council direction request, from the Director of Corporate Services regarding establishing a situation table with continued municipal support.
Thank you, Your Worship. I wanted to take a moment just to provide a bit of a brief update on where we are at with situation table establishment, and then have some council direction on appointing a chair for that table. So as everyone is aware, in November, we had our launch meeting. We had a really good turnout with about 28 individuals from social service and human agency services within Creston. Subsequent to that, we did have 4 individuals come forward as mentor training or as mentors for the process, representing Kootenai Community Center Society, Kootenai Employment Services, the RCMP, and Nahakin Basket Child and Family Services. So they have completed their mentor training now. And just as a recap, the mentor role is not meant to continue throughout the duration of the table. It's just intended to support participants as they go into their training and launch the table. So what they're working on now is just finishing up the participant list. So we have really good representation from organizations across Creston, but we need to identify a chair to also undertake that training. And the chair is a bit of a unique position because while we have good representation from these community agencies, the chair really needs to be a neutral facilitator that doesn't have an intervention to offer. In other communities, it has been staff where they have dedicated staff. So for an example, in Cranbrook, they have a social development coordinator that serves this role, but it's a full-time employee. In smaller communities, it has been an elected official that has taken on that role. So what I was hoping to discuss tonight is just around if there are counselors interested in doing this. It is a time commitment. So for the meetings to be successful, it's advised that the situation table convenes weekly. The frequency might drop off, but in the beginning, to really get those relationships and all of the training that you've just learned ingrained, it would be about an hour once a week. Folks come together, they bring their cases forward. No case management at the table. So the job of the chair is to really maintain that neutrality, manage their time, and make sure that the privacy and confidentiality pieces of the table are maintained. But I'll just stop there and let council discuss if they would like an elected official as a chair. So we have some other options too.
Sorry,
Yeah, go ahead.
let's start. I think it's fine if we have a council as chair, because we certainly in our governance role can maintain that at the table. I do think it's a big job. And in the option 2 talked about co-chairing, and I don't necessarily see value in 2 co-chairs at every meeting, but I do think maybe you call it an alternate chair with 2 equally trained council, but maybe one that's more available to do that, just to maintain consistency, because it is a big time commitment. An hour a week when you're not, that's not your job to do necessarily. So it does allow the council a bit of flexibility if there's an alternate councillor as well. Yeah. Would be my only comment.
Yeah. I have some hesitations about it being a counselor as the chair. I understand that some communities have done that. In other communities, I know that there's rotating chairs. Or it's members of the group. So I think in Vermeer, it's the ECAS person, and in work, I think it was RCMP at one point, but maybe it's changed now. I also think this could lead into a more fulsome discussion on our upcoming, like the compensation for counselors when they're attending boards and committees. And so an hour a week is definitely not insubstantial when most of ours are monthly quarterly. So I think that that's something to take into consideration. I'm wondering, you mentioned, Creston, that there's some other options. What would those be?
So you could, as in other communities, you could look at another social service provider to step forward and do that.
Yeah.
So Cranbrook did start out with RCMP, but they quickly switched over to staff. Because when you get the chair too involved in providing a solution, it becomes hard to manage the meeting.
Yeah.
So when I have spoken to Global Network, they really do maintain as neutral as possible, which becomes difficult when you have another organization, but that is an option. So, you know, you can look at co-chair is probably a good option. So you have two people balancing that. It's not all on one person's plate. The other option in the report is you let the chair establish itself and see if any sort of leaders emerge through that. At this time, when the mentors have been going through the organizations, there's already a concern that it will be difficult for these organizations to participate based on their own capacity. So one thing that is nice about having an elected official chair is it shows our continued support for it. I mean, alternatively, and not in the report, you could contemplate staff, but that would come with a budget implication because at this time we don't have that kind of capacity to support. So those would be kind of your CAO.
My only comment on it was to answer Councillor Aries. It certainly, I was just looked at the council remuneration policy. And it actually is, the per diem was actually for out of town meetings. So council could, because of that being so significant on somebody's time, as council could establish a rate of pay specific for that we could.
But I think there's one starting for in-town meetings as well. Is that not true?
That's one. That was this fourth year that it started.
Oh, yeah, within Creston Valley.
And I'm definitely not suggesting to add that.
So again, I think that the comment still holds is that perhaps council want to review that because it starts for in-town meetings as well. Which then if it's an hour meeting, and so for council's consideration, the rate would be a little over $100 for that meeting. And so, and then if you put the consistency, so if that was 50 meetings a week, that's $5,000. So council may want to adjust it for that particular type of meeting versus your more once a month committee type of one. So again, I think it's a consideration, or council could leave the policy as is, but and sorry, my apologies, it is for in-town meetings. No, I didn't tell you.
Councillor Hawes.
Maybe we look at a counselor to start or an elected official to start. And as you talked about, one of the options where natural leaders may come up, maybe as the validity and the success of the situation table solidifies for some of the community organizations, they may be able to realize a way where they can be there as a problem solver, but also the capacity to chair. I certainly have sat on other types of assessment committees like this where you go one direction and you end up with a different facilitator leading the meeting. So maybe we start it that way just to ensure that we're moving forward and just allow it to naturally evolve the way it's going to function.
I think our director of corporate services learned that as well. There's in some communities, the communities aren't even involved with them after a period of time. And so it could be something that transitions really out of our realm. Once it's going, so.
Councillor Baldwin.
Well, I personally think having an impartial chair at the outside is the best way to go, simply because everybody else is wondering the balance of power, the influence, and also not really wanting to take it on. So I think we have lots of talented people at the table here who could be involved in that. And, you know, I could nominate some people, but I certainly wouldn't mind being an alternate, but it's one of those things where whoever's there first really sets the tone and the leadership style. So, but I think the alternate approach is a good idea, because then it isn't weighing as heavily on one individual week after week.
One next question then, is there a counselor in particular that would want to take on this role?
I mean, I would entertain that idea. In past professional roles, I have done this type of thing, but like I said, I do see us naturally evolving out of there, just knowing how these types of tables function. But I agree with you, Keith. We do bring that neutrality where we can't even engage in the conversations because we don't know the individuals and what will solve it, and that will honor what this table is meant to do.
Yeah, and you know, I thought of you when this came up, of course, because of your experience, and I thought you'd be a good fit, and having a co-chair, I think, it's a good idea, again, just to share that duty, and it may evolve, as everybody said, into somebody else becoming the chair of that. And I think we all know that's in the report as well, just the importance of a neutral chair, someone who is just basically directing meetings, not directing decisions. And I think that the success of a situation table really hinges on having somebody chair it in that manner, and let the committee and participants make the decisions. And so, having said that, I support you in that role. I think that's you're a good fit. And I'm looking around for
That's right.
Madam or Miss or co-chair, sir, co-chair. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I agree. I think Councillor Houghton would be a great chair for the situation table, and I would be happy to co-chair or alternate or whenever she can be there. I'm happy to support her for sure.
Is that training?
There is training that they have to do for this, so
Just wanted to make sure that we.
Make sure you know what you're signing up for.
That's the next of the proposed recommendation. So training does take place. It's about 8 to 10 hours over a 3-week period. Once we have all of the participants, this was sort of the final piece. I wanted to have an opportunity to speak to council. We'll be launching it. So I imagine it would start fairly quickly. If you have any time considerations, so we can definitely speak to that. Bit of a time commitment straight up front, and then there will be a launch meeting after that where participants will convene and there will be law.
Is there any restrictions to the number of
There are no restrictions.
council members we could put into the training?
There are no restrictions on the number of participants.
So if I could suggest perhaps, you know, well, there may only be 2 that are interested right now, is perhaps if maybe 3 or 4 councillors take the training, and then this way, with the municipal election coming up, it could be some continuity flowing into that, you know.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Yep.
Right. Sorry, since there's no, because we have the funding, and it's.
I add my name to that list then.
Yes.
So we have at least 3 councillors, anybody else?
Yeah, I did too.
Okay. That's a big 4.
I might be interested, but I'm not sure if it's a conflict of interest.
Yeah.
You could take the training.
Yeah, that's the training.
And then
Yeah.
at least that's out of the way, and because we have the money, and I think that
Right.
if everybody takes the training, or as many people who take the training, it will provide us perhaps more options in the future as well,
Yeah.
if this evolves, or you'll have free training and we give it away to somebody else.
I think it helps us as a council to continue the support of the situation table and to really understand what situations arise in our community and how we can address them through the table. So I think us all understanding that, and you know, the pillars that are going to be used to determine how issues are dealt with will be important for this council to understand.
And with that, I don't know how much of an impact it'll have right away, but all of us are on committees and commissions, and it may impact participation in those where we may have to consider reassigning some committees and commissions, just to distribute that to the rest of council that aren't doing this, so that it's a fair distribution.
Has the other, I mean, the multi-agencies or the other agencies, have they come forward and said, you know, Wednesday at 2 or Friday at 4? Like, have they said what is best for our agency for this?
We're not at that point, so I think once they undergo training and understand the ins and outs of it, then we can have that conversation, which sort of leads me in just that final piece of the support that the municipal staff can continue to provide in a smaller way, but we can help with sort of the admin and determining that meeting convening and providing meeting space, so we are able to use council chambers for situation tables to convene and provide some limited but non-operational support.
Okay,
at council.
and is there a requirement after each meeting to do some reporting back to the ministry that's funding this, or is that like
There is a
monthly
data-
or quarterly?
There's a
or-
data recorder requirement. We have had somebody come forward to do that. So that piece is covered.
Sense.
It's very, I haven't completed the mentor training myself, but it's a spreadsheet and it's just numbers.
Pretty simple.
Yeah.
Details.
Okay, well, I'll read the recommendations and that, council approved continued municipal support for the establishment and operation of the situation table as a collaborative risk-based initiative aligned with community safety and well-being objectives, and appoint a counselor, in this case, the counselor's chair, with, as many as 4 to participate in the training, but to appoint that with the role limited to providing neutral governance oversight, ensuring adherence to the 4-filter approach, preventing case management or operational decision-making at the table, and supporting efficient and effective weekly meetings, and direct that the appointed chair complete the required asynchronous situation table training, anticipated to take approximately 8 to 10 hours, delivered online with mentor support prior to or concurrent at the launch of the situation table, and authorize the provision of non-operational municipal supports where feasible, such as meeting space and basic convening assistance, without assuming responsibility for service delivery, case management, or operational functions. Situation table. We're good with that? So we have, again, many as 4 that will sign up for the training, and then we'll work forward with that. Thank you all for that. Appreciate that. Thanks.
So much.
Okay, now we need a recommendation that we rise from the committee of the motion. Councilor Holden, second Councilor Baldwin, all in favor, motion carried. We will go on with division reports. First is corporate administration. Request for decision from the CAO regarding repeal policy of SER 001-085 water connection policy. And we have a whole bunch of repeal policies, so I won't read the numbers for each of them, but we'll just go through them.
Okay, well, what I will do is I'll go through I believe there's 6 of them.
Yep.
So what I'll do is I'll just go over all of them all at once, and then, and I apologize, you have to do these as individual motions. But they were all, also adopted by individual motions, so, so anyhow, the water connection policy, is an outdated policy that is captured within, your water, a number of bylaws, but primarily, with your, water services bylaw. Water and sewer connection fees, those again are captured in different bylaws. You got your fees and charges bylaws that are updated, as well as your other utility bylaws that cover any of the costs related to that. The septic facility policy was actually adopted on a much different system. That was actually when they had a pipe that they would just pump right into the system. We haven't been doing that for I don't know, 20 years. Long time. And right now, really, that's governed through an agreement with the regional district, and there's plans for upgrading the service. So there's no need for the policy. And as the new septic facility is brought online and built, it's going to be, captured through agreement and or bylaw. So that's the more appropriate place for it. The amusement ride policy is captured within your business license policy. The provincial state of emergency for the deployment of firefighters Again, that's captured, your deployments are all captured within bylaw. The operational natures of it changes year to year through provincial updates, because every year they do a view of how the deployments across the province took place, and they update it, and so there'd be no way you'd keep up with it, nor is it appropriate for you to have some operational. The road policy, I can't remember what that one was anymore, but I believe it's, the traffic one is about directing the bylaws for to be stringent on parking in lanes. We manage parking either, proactive as time allows or based on complaint. And the road policy is,
Referencing a master plan from
oh yeah, 1979 master plan. Thank you very much. Yeah. Which is not relevant. And when it comes to master plans, you don't need a policy directing staff. I mean, the whole idea of having a master plan is to provide guidance to staff. So when either development takes place or infrastructure needs to be replaced or we're building a new road, is individuals like our manager of engineering will be coming back with the master plan of storm, water, sewer to help guide you on the decisions today on rebuild or rebuild of a road. And that's what the plans are for. To have a policy that states that that's what you're gonna do just seems redundant after you adopt that as your future plan. So I'll leave you guys to the resolutions for those.
Okay, so
Unless there are questions.
we'll go through the repeal motion on each of these, but I won't go into detail on the report, but we'll just, we'll accept the report for each one of these as part of the motion, and I'll just read the motion. And that council repeals corporate policy SCR 001-35 water connection policy. Motion to repeal that. Councillor Houghton seconds, Councillor Holland, all in favor, motion carried. And again, we'll accept the report with the next one, that council repeals corporate policy SCR 001-040 water and sewer connection fee policy. Motion made by Councillor Dumas, seconded by Councillor Aries. All in favor? Motion carried. I'm not asking for discussion on these, but I don't think we need it. Okay, so then number 3, again, we will receive that report. The council repeals corporate policy SCR 001-050 sewage or septic facility policy. Councillor Eisler, seconded Councillor Aries. All in favor? Motion carried. And number 4, again, we will accept receive the report, and the council repeals corporate policy SCR 004-005 amusement rides policy. Councillor Baldwin, seconded Councillor Houghton. All in favor? Motion is carried. Next is again, receive the report, and my pages are hanging together. All right, the council repeals policy SCR 006-050 provincial state of emergency. Councillor Aries, second, Councillor Dumas, all in favor. Motion is carried. Next is the repeal corporate policy 007-001 road policy. Councillor Holland, seconded Councillor Baldwin, all in favor. Motion carried. And finally, let's report with corporate policy SCR 010-005, repeal the traffic control policy. Councillor Dumas, second, Councillor Aries, all in favor. Motion carried. All right, we've repealed a pile of stuff. Yeah. Right, so corporate services, we go to finance information report from the Director of Finance regarding the draft 5-year financial plan and public comments on the 2026 budget.
Thank you, Your Worship, Council. Apologies that I in my mouth so I don't smile at all. That's why I'm not mad at anyone or anything. So wow. Anyways, yeah, we had posted our municipal budget for review by the public. It was up for a couple of weeks. It was advertised on the radio, I believe in the paper and social media posts. I'll get to those stats on that. And then have a draft 5-year financial plan. I'll be back again next week to present for the first 3 readings. So there's still a bit of a work, a bit of tweaking, but at least there's something kind of in front now to, sort of start. And if there's questions, then at least I have some time to kind of take it back. So before we get to that piece, hopefully everyone has seen this document. But I wanted to at least, preface the conversations first by just doing a very quick review of this. Lots of this information shouldn't necessarily be new. I think this clicker should work. So this, I'll speak a bit about the process behind the document after. And, I'm going to go through this relatively quickly. If there's comments along the way, feel free to ask. But otherwise, I'll probably just, move through pretty quickly. So, table of contents, the great picture of your worship there. And I think, Randy was happy to include that. This is a, budget timeline. Where we are, I think we're about a week, February 2026, we're about a week away from March 3rd. There's a comment on public engagement, kind of just reinforcing that, we really do want this engagement. Council strategy, I'm not going to spend too much time here. This is the 2026 budget overview. So kind of discussing about some of the process, some of the stats behind it, some comments on inflation. This is our path ahead to 2026. And specifically, actually, these 2 pages, I really felt that if anyone was only to have read these 2 pages, they would understand, hopefully they could understand everything about what's happening this year and why. And I think that hopefully is a big accomplishment if people read these 2 pages and they're like, hey, you know what, if I only read these 2 pages, I'm good. So this essentially explains, where we started from at the end of 2025, what changes are going to happen going to 2026, kind of a slice of the pies, if you will, down there with that loonie. And then this essentially is what our budget will be. Made some changes to that waterfall graph. There was a good idea that was given to have the arrows kind of indicating, whether there's increases or decreases in expenditure. And then, you could see the number essentially, we need 200, I believe the number is $247,000 more for, I don't know why I'm looking at it here, I have it here, for representing the 4.11% increase. And then there's some commentary now on the next page about, the different buckets from that waterfall graph, what these things are, why we need to increase. And then there's a summary of new initiatives. And this table represents all the budget sheets that we had looked through, all the core, all the one-time, all the capital, for all the different funds, all basically summarized into one. So, I thought it was clear to say, hey, you know what, these are all the new things that for this year we're planning to spend money on. Then there's just some higher level overview on budget basics, why do we budget, what do we use tax dollars for, different sources of funding, all the services provided, the different utilities, so on and so forth. Essentially how a resident might feel the impact of the municipal budget. So if you're, a business owner or resident, and what your monthly increase for your solid waste and water and sewer fees might be, some comparatives between us and other local communities. Some of these pages are quite similar to years past. This is a kind of a closer look at our general fund operations. So, where we plan on spending the money, where we plan on raising the money from, contributions and use of reserves, some general high-level commentary on, why these numbers are what they are. A closer look at the utilities, so kind of the same thing, but now just speaking more specifically to our 3 utilities. Capital projects, basically just, again, kind of summarizing the capital projects that we have and the sources of revenue for those capital. And then kind of, this is more so high level, because we don't have too much borrowing going on right now, just our policies around borrowing for capital and when projects might be coming up. And then this graph that, we're familiar with, nothing really has changed from this, but just at least for people to be able to kind of see the big picture. And then we move into an overview of divisions and departments. So we have here an org chart, and then each department basically got 2 pages. So there's a departmental budget where it's broken down a little bit more. So on, that 2026 operations, you would see one line for general government, it says 3.6. So some small rounding here, it says 3.5 right for 2026. And you can see, okay, so now going general government broken down for general government, facilities and IT council, so on and so forth. We included some stats from each department, just this kind of, nice to have other information as well. And then on the next page are all the core budget operations and one-time operational projects that relate to those areas. So here again, I felt like it's easy to see, hey, this is what they're spending the money on. These are the new things that they're spending the money on. And all the detail for all these, so all the budget sheets were listed as appendices to this report as well. available on the website listed right below, and I actually even referenced the appendices earlier in this budget document. So, if anyone looked at this and they said, oh, Dash for Trash event grant $1,000, I want to know more about that. It's very easy for them to go and get the detail. I'm not going to really speak too much about these. I'll just flip through them, right? Protective services, same thing. Infrastructure, same thing. And all these numbers are unchanged from the, much more in-depth, right, presentations that we had talked about before. This is just essentially to get us to going forward. So our CMP, and then this is all of the one-time projects capital. So you can see, and these align with the other charts that we've seen. And then the utilities initiatives, I just put them all into one page, just to be concise. And that's the end of the document. So before I kind of talk about the engagement that we got from this, certainly a big thanks goes to Brandy Dyer, who works a lot with me. We actually moved her computer into my office, and we sat, back to back working on this. I think that it was a lot of great effort went into this. We cut the document from last year in half, down from about 70 pages to 33. I hope that this inspires some type of better readability and more people are engaged and things like that. So hopefully that's the case. I also designed this document this year in line with Government Finance Officers Association, like rubric best practices for, us to potentially submit this and hopefully win some awards. But, they have laid out essentially all the criteria that you would need to do that. And it's best practices, right? So if you win an award, it means you did a good job. So we'll see.
Well, it's great.
It is
Fantastic.
really good.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
Good. Well, I'm
Yeah.
I'm glad you feel that way. And as you can see here, we got 3 comments that more or less say the same thing. Only 3 comments, so we did get some questions as well. So yeah, these are the ways that we advertise them. So 2 news flashes on the website, radio ad three times a day, 7 days a week, and on social media as well. We did get a little bit more views. So we got 4,500 views on social media, 170 visitors, but still only 3 comments and 2 questions. So I'll leave the comments here, for people to read, and then council can discuss after. And then these were the questions and the responses from the town. So I'll just pause it there before I move to the draft 5-year plan. If there's any questions, comments, or concerns.
I know one of the things we discussed in our budget meeting was the 30-kilometer-an-hour safety streets initiative, and how we really, the money is sort of a placeholder, but I don't think we're intending to move forward at any speed with that. So, on paper, it looks like we're dedicating 71,500 for that, but in reality, I don't think we are. So I don't know if we're gonna remove that or revise that or just leave it.
So in the sheets, your worship, that project was first off was renamed by council's suggestion when we were doing budget deliberations. As well as staff have been given direction on what we're gonna do over the next year to support that, because there is other opportunities in terms of, rather than a blanket 30 kilometers on all those streets, is there some traffic calming that could be done as an alternative for other features and things like that. So there's some direction back to staff on supporting that prior to the next budget cycle. So that got moved into the next year. And we renamed it, I forget the actual name of it, but road safety something.
Good. Any other questions?
That's good.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah.
Hearing none, then I'll move to a draft of the 5-year consolidated financial plan. So this consolidates all 3 of the funds, the general, water, and sewer. I'll get into some comments on some of the assumptions once I get into the specific funds. One thing that I'll point out here is, if you kind of look at the difference between transfers from accumulated surplus and transfers to accumulated surplus and reserve funds, if you do the math on all of those, it averages out to be $1.7 million more essentially each year. Obviously, these will change in future years as we become more aware of actual expenditures. Some of that will likely be used to offset taxation, any new capital or new one-time projects. So, this again, the outer years are very much a roadmap. Things will undoubtedly change, but noting that there, are things that will likely eat up into that as they normally would. So hopefully it's not too alarming. And again, it's just a draft as well. So when I go back and spend more time, those numbers might change a little bit. Looking here at the general fund, a few, assumptions to point out. Again, this isn't law by any means, just assumptions in order to make these documents. So the increase to property taxes year over year, I used an assumption of 5%. I think it mirrors pretty close, the 4.1% that we're at this year. Again, it doesn't mean that it will be 5%, doesn't even mean necessarily it will come close to 5%. It's just kind of taking the information that we have now and using sort of similar documentation in the past. I've assumed a 2.5% growth on total expenditures. There are some particular lines where they have more, reliable data, so they'll either stay the same or they'll go up by specific amounts. But as kind of an overall number, that's kind of a growth year to year. And then one other item is in 2030, you'll see that we have borrowing of 510,000. That's for fire engine 21. That was already part of the capital sheets that went forward for the 5-year capital plan as well. But just if you were seeing that. And all the capital expenditures in the capital expenditures line follow the capital sheets that were submitted for the budget process as well. To be honest, I don't have much comments on the water or the sewer either. The mechanisms are the same. And then the last page is just a commentary on the capital expenditures and some, typical financial policies that the town has. But this mirrors really the commentary from prior years. So again, this is just a draft. I will continue to spend more time with it over the next week, making likely minor refinements. But if there's any questions, comments, or concerns now, then I'm happy to address those or take that away as a direction of staff.
Nope, everyone's quiet.
It looks good.
It's an indication, you know your way around a budget.
Hopefully.
Well, I know it's a 300% increase in comments, because I don't think the last several years we had these.
It's still pretty low net level of comments on our budget. Go ahead, Councilor Baldwin.
I think maybe something to lead in a little bit rather than seeing it in the comments is maybe to put it out there is the highway realignment issue. In other words, people will be wondering, well, where is it? What's going on? And to sort of learn that we really don't have a definitive answer or even an order of magnitude answer. Because that would be something that scares me, is that we're committing to it and it could be a $5 million hit or something. Is that, is not realistic, but still. Is there some way of at least addressing it? Just putting it over here. Many people have asked about it.
I think I just want to, because some of the conversation perhaps is in a different meeting, such as in camera.
Sure.
And so I guess the public's side of it is Ministry of Highways is doing a feasibility study.
Right.
And once they've done a feasibility study, that conversation will take place. So there's really nothing publicly that we could state other than, Highways is taking a look at that.
I just thought if there is an opportunity to just throw it out there and say there's nothing definitive, that would anticipate people being, well, why aren't they talking about it? Well, we are talking about it, but there's really nothing we can report. So,
Yeah, I'm not sure if you asked that question because of the question that was asked on the Let's Talk Creston, but that is essentially the response that we gave.
right.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's great. I'm not trying to pick holes in this. I think, again, throwing my citizens hat on, going, where's this other big thing?
That
Has been in the wind.
Yeah, that is the function of the Let's Talk Creston, and submit your comments, questions, and we'll answer them. So, yes. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. So let's have somebody move that the report titled Draft 5-Year Financial Plan and Public Comments on the 2026 budget dated February 24th, 2026 from the Director of Finance be received for information. Councilor Iser, second to Councilor Aries, all in favor? Motion is carried. We will go to community services for the request for decision from the Director of Community Services regarding Public Art Working Committee Annual Action Plan in terms of reference.
So at our last meeting, staff presented the 2026 Public Art Working Committee annual action plan and requested council's direction on updating the committee's terms of reference. So included within today's report is the action plan and terms of reference for your consideration. The terms of reference have been revised to add one additional member from the arts community and create a designated position for a representative from the Creston Valley Arts Council. Staff also received an application for the Arts Council representative role, which was supported by the committee's council representative. So today the recommendations threefold: the endorsement of the action plan, approval of the updated terms of reference, and appointing Jan McDonald as the Creston Valley Arts Council representative.
Any questions?
I was wondering, what is a kindness meter?
The kindness
Oh,
meter.
They were last time. Now I thought they were very clever.
Yeah, so we've been working on getting our hands on some kindness meters. So there are old parking meters that originally, the Lions Club has them now. They purchased them from the town and they've kind of finished their programming through it. So they're generously donating those back. And the intent is that, you know, we paint them up and then the funds that would be collected from those.
So people would put money in them.
Yeah, we have some people that are interested in hosting those.
Okay.
And then the funds that would be collected from them would be given towards some kind of cause, probably to do with her.
Oh, that's right.
Okay, we'll move with the motion then that council receives a February 24th, 2026 request for decision titled Public Art Working Committee Annual Action Plan in terms of reference from the Director of Community Services for information. That council endorses the Public Art Working Committee 2026 Annual Action Plan, and that council approves an amendment to the Public Art Working Committee terms of reference to revise the number of members in the arts community from 4 to 5 and include an additional position for a representative from the Creston Valley Arts Council. And further, that council appoints Jan McDonald as a Creston Valley Arts Council representative to the Public Art Working Committee. Councilor Baldwin, seconded. Councilor Popping, all in favor. Motion is carried. So next we have a whole bunch of recommendations from the last week's committee of the whole. And first is, so I'll just summarize these recommendations. First is that we received a delegation from our staff sergeant regarding the quarterly report. Next is that council directs staff to proceed to public notification for development experience permit. Council received this February 10th report from the Director of Community Services regarding the cemetery select committee update. They direct staff to notify the RDCK, required contribution will remain unchanged. Further, the council directs staff to develop draft policies for the use of cemetery fees. Recommendation 4, council directs staff to prepare a report for the Creston Valley Services Committee requesting the ongoing maintenance cost of the Centennial Baseball Field Revitalization project to be funded through shared recreation services. The mayor be authorized to write a letter of support for the revitalization project for the baseball fields. And then number 5, council directs staff to represent the Public Art Working Committee Annual Action Plan for endorsement in an upcoming council meeting. That council directs staff to amend the terms of reference to include representation and increase the number at large from 1 to 2. Next recommendation is council receives it January 29th. Council direction request titled Fireworks for Canada Day from the Director of Protective Services for information. Council directs fire department staff to no longer plan to provide fireworks displays for Canada Day celebrations. Council directs staff to prepare a communication for residents explaining the challenges associated with that. And further, council directs staff to explore light show options for Canada Day, including availability and costing. And recommendation number 7, that council endorse the proposed corporate approach to establishing levels of service policies for all municipal services. Council approves the 2026 implementation roadmap, including 3 to 5 pilot services. And council, and further, administration report back to council in Q2 2026 with the first corporate level of services dashboard and draft level of service policies for pilot services. Having said all that, I need a mover. Councillor Houghton, second, Councillor Baldwin. Any discussion on any of that? All in favor? Motion is carried. All of those motion carries. We go on with correspondence. Request for letter of support from BC Farmers Market to continue support the Farmers Market Nutrition Coupon Program. The motion is that council authorizes the mayor to write a letter in support of the BC Farmers Market Nutrition Coupon Program, which addresses nutrition needs, affordability, and food security for lower income pregnant people, families with children, and seniors, elders within the Creston community. Motion 2, Councillor Iser, second, Councillor Aries, all in favor?
Can I just
Yes,
make a
sure.
comment? Sorry. So I was a bit surprised because I think what this is suggesting is the current budget is not, provincial budget is not gonna support this programming, and it identifies, 67 vulnerable families in our community and a really large chunk of money that provided fresh vegetables and fruits to people in our community that weren't going to have that access as readily. So I'm wondering if, in addition to our letter, knowing that the Honorable Minister Osborne will be at the AKLBG doing a panel or like a question period on the Sunday. I'm wondering if we want to actually literally pose this question there as well.
We could.
I can speak a little bit too. Every year they don't have secured funding, so I can't speak to the BC budget as it moves forward, but this is a standing request, so I think
Is
it's
it?
on a
Okay.
year by year basis.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good. All in favor of the motion, the motion is carried. We have a bunch of received for information, can for referrals, Skimmerhorn Productions, invitation to attend networking breakfast. Key Boyden representing, respecting town Creston taxes and town response from the CAO. The motion is that council receives of those for information. And of course, we responded to
One correction, is the response was from the mayor.
It was from the mayor. Correct. Responses from the mayor. Yep. So we received those for information. Motion 2. Councillor Berries, seconded by Councillor Eisler. In discussion. All in favor?
Do we need to reply back? Skimmerhorn Production did say as soon as possible, identify if there would be anyone attending their networking breakfast.
I guess what I would ask here is there's somebody that wants to go to that. I would be happy to go, but is there anybody else?
I would go. Cool.
Okay.
Let's do that.
Me separate.
Peter. May Simpson.
I'll be attending the breakfast as well. I've been invited and I'll provide some little tent.
Sounds good. So we may have 3 attendees there.
Oh my God.
The mayor's schedule is in front of you. Then I'll be away for part of March, so Councillor Baldwin, they have to take a meeting there late in the morning. That may change if things don't settle down in Mexico.
We're looking for those action background shots. Drink in your hand and machine guns in the background.
I may have to just take a fire extinguisher along. So Councillor Dumas in April, Councillor Iser in May, June is Councillor Houghton, July Councillor Holland, August Councillor Aries. And I just want to remind council before we go to question period that coincidentally, when we were at lunch today at the brunch club, I was asked if there was a coffee with the mayor event at the brunch club, because it wasn't on my schedule and they haven't really reminded us of it. So I didn't know, but I emailed Jessica, and yes, Thursday morning at 7 a.m. there is coffee with the mayor at the brunch club, and of course, councillors are invited to attend. So if there are councillors here that can attend, would that?
This Thursday, or is it every Thursday?
This Thursday.
This Thursday.
This Thursday,
Coffee talk.
7 a.m. It's a coffee talk with the mayor and council. So
7:30?
Yeah.
7:30.
Sounds good in chamber members.
7:30.
And how many council, like
Is
yourself?
it 7:30?
Did Jessica email you 7 or 7:30?
I think she said 7 to 8:30 is what I got from her. That's not accurate?
I thought it was 7:30 to 9, but maybe.
No, her emails, and I will just double check that, but it pretty sure.
And that's what Corey was booked was 7.
Yeah, 7 AM to 8:30 is what she said, so I guess we'll have to hold her to it.
Yeah.
So, any counselors want to attend?
I'm free if no one
Okay.
else is.
I've been to it before, I'll go. It's actually another appointment at 9, but
I can go, but who went last time?
Was Counselor Baldwin, Counselor Baldwin himself?
So is that the only one we had with that?
That was the only one at the Brunch
Okay.
Club so far. Yeah.
Hmm.
So.
I can't, this stuff some morning.
It's up to you, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, somewhere.
so I'm up and around anyway, so.
Well, here's what I'll say, that you all know what time it is and you're welcome to come.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if there's 4 of us, one of us will walk away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It would be totally fine. We'll talk about council when they meet outside of the group. I mean, we've been a little, but if more than,
Yeah.
that'd be fine. You're just not allowed to actually discuss business and.
Okay.
Right,
Right.
So I'll just refrain from that.
yeah,
Try to avoid quorum.
Yes.
Yeah.
and no promises.
No, you have, if you have quorum in an area, if you have quorum, you just, I mean, you're not allowed to discuss business items and make decisions.
Yeah.
Without a posted meeting, so
Yep.
please refrain from that.
And is there any questions from the gallery?
Is there any topics that you guys would like to discuss at the coffee chat?
Well, usually we have the members of the chamber there usually they have some good questions and when we answer the questions and discuss those things, so it worked well last time.
It was very casual. It was just very free flowing and.
Yeah.
Just a bunch of colleagues getting together.
Yeah.
Do they have some questions that they?
Yeah.
Cause we kind of know a little bit ahead.
I think the downtown revitalizations kind of.
Yeah, must
Yeah,
be.
parking, yeah.
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 That kind of thing.
Yeah,
Okay.
we answered questions and basically gave as much of an update as we could last time, and so thankful to the same. All right, we have no closed meeting. So I guess I would just look for a motion to adjourn then. Stand by Councilor Ayres, second for Dumas, we are adjourned.
We have
Everyone.